shock, and awe. Wall Street reacts with a record rally to the latest decision on economic stimulus. In today's cover story, confrontation under the Golden Arches. A group of Australians go toe-to-toe with McDonald's execs. Plus, where's the love? Why Americans are feeling less engaged at the office. And will the Toronto Film Festival be the source of the next blockbuster hit? First Business starts now.
You're watching First Business. Financial news, analysis, and today's investment ideas.
Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, September 19th. I'm Angela Miles. In today's first look, a record relief rally. The Dow and S&P 500 reached all-time highs after the Fed said it's not ready yet to start tapering its bond buying program. Gold futures reacted with a $57 surge. Oil pushed higher by $2.76. Oracle gives a weak outlook in its earnings report. The software stock fell 3% after the close on that disappointing forecast. Dow Jones reports BlackBerry is going deep by preparing to cut 40% of its staff by the end of the year. And Priceline hits $1,000 per share during yesterday's trading session. The stock closed at $9.95. Todd Horwitz of Average Joe Options joins us on the show now. And Todd, we had a taper escaper. What do you expect from the market today?
Good morning, Angie. You know, I wonder what happened to the transparency in the market. We were supposed to have a transparent Fed and we were supposed to start tapering. Well, yesterday they decided that they didn't want to, so they kind of sandbagged the market. I think we're very near top. This bubble, which I've been on record before, this is one of the bigger bubbles, and this is starting to remind me of Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns back in '08. So I look for the action to wane and look for some selling pressure.
What's your outlook on treasuries?
Treasuries, I think, are going to start coming down again. I think we had a natural spike yesterday based on what the Fed said, but interest rates want to go higher. We've seen this for the last 2 or 3 months playing out, that interest rates have started to rise, and I don't think there's anything that's going to really stop the interest rates from rising. So I think treasuries will start to get hit again.
Gold spiked yesterday. Is that telling us anything at all?
Well, you know, we had a tremendous amount of weakness in the U.S. dollar, which naturally pushes up the price of commodities, in this case gold. Gold was coming off. Listen, remember, gold was just $14.20. It went back to $12.75, so we're having a little bit of a bounce back in here. But I think gold fits along with everything else, and you should be a seller of gold as well.
Thank you, my doomer and gloomer friend. Have a good trading day.
Have a great day.
A wave of relief on Wall Street. Traders received a surprise yesterday when the Federal Reserve decided to continue its bond buying stimulus program until it has more evidence of economic progress. Chairman Ben Bernanke says the budget debate in Washington and rising mortgage rates pose risks to economic recovery. He also told market watchers that changes in the unemployment rate alone may not indicate when the Fed tapering will begin.
In particular, there is not any magic number that we are shooting for. We're looking for overall improvement in the labor market.
For now, the Fed's bond buying program will continue. Bernanke hinted that the central bank may begin to taper before the end of the year, depending on the data. Short-term interest rates will also remain low.
The Fed's threat of tapering its bond buying program back in May sparked a rise in interest rates. Now that the Fed remains on hold from actually taking action, Greg McBride at Bankrate.com tells us what consumers can expect.
Well, Angie, I think you get a little bit of a break from those higher mortgage rates that we've seen. It's kind of like the brief respite, if you will, because it's not that they've taken this tapering off the table. All they've done is just put it on hold for another month or so until they eventually start it. And inevitably they will. When they do, mortgage rates will resume the march higher.
Last week, mortgage applications jumped 11% from the previous week as interest rates dipped just a bit. The 30-year fix fell to 4.75%. The 15-year slipped to 3.81%.
For money managers in corporate America, the Fed failing to taper means more of the same availability of historically low interest rates. About 2,000 companies in corporate America are saving a collective $700 billion in interest payments, while corporate bond yields have fallen to an average of 4.6%.
The question is, should you be in the bond market or the stock market? No, it has to be in the stock market because that's where all the money is flowing. What you're going to be seeing is the stocks, especially the financial stocks, doing exceptionally well because they're the direct beneficiaries of it.
JP Morgan Chase says corporations boosted capital expenditures up 8.7% in the second quarter as compared with a year ago. Also, needy companies are getting a break. as the speculative grade default rate has dropped to 2.3% in August. It was 11.5% in November 2009.
President Obama is urging business leaders to use their influence to help avoid a congressional clash over the debt ceiling. The president spoke to the CEOs at a business roundtable Wednesday. The nation is on track to reach its borrowing limit next month. If Congress does not reach a deal, the government will partially shut down and the U.S. will default on its bills that it owes from previous years. The president says a faction of the Republican Party is holding up negotiations.
You have never seen in the history of the United States the debt ceiling or the threat of not raising the debt ceiling being used to extort a president or a governing party and trying to force issues that have nothing to do with the budget and have nothing to do with the debt.
As the president was speaking to business leaders, House Speaker John Boehner laid out a bill that raises the debt ceiling but strips funding for Obamacare.
Walgreens is the latest company doing the healthcare shuffle. Instead of offering healthcare benefits, the drugstore chain is sending workers to the new health insurance care exchanges with some money to spend on coverage. Walgreens follows Sears and Darden restaurants in sidestepping healthcare reform. The news benefited Benefit Focus. The company makes software that enables a company's employees to seek benefits through private health exchanges. The stock nearly doubled in its IPO debut yesterday.
Public sector workers in Greece are on strike. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, and court officials walked off the job yesterday. Today marks day 2 of strikes, opposing a plan to place government workers in a labor reserve. The plan is dictated by Greece's bailout terms. Workers contend it's a cover for more layoffs. Later this week, Troika officials will visit Athens for a review of Greece's bailout performance.
A grim measure of the economic crisis came to light this week. New data compiled on suicides uncovered a spike following the 2008 financial crisis. 5,000 victims of suicide were reported in 2009, an increase of 9% in the U.S. and in Canada. The victims, mostly men between the ages of 45 and 64.
Such a sad story. As for other fallout from the financial crisis, the government is reducing its stake in GM sooner than expected. The U.S. Treasury has slashed its stake in the car company to just 7.3%, putting the government within months of winding down from its bailout of GM.
The SEC is out with its highly anticipated proposal on CEO pay. Under the plan, companies would have to disclose the median annual employee compensation and the ratio of that median to annual CEO pay. Currently, it's estimated CEOs earn 354 times more than average workers. Critics say the new rules will not be beneficial to investors.
Apple's new iPhones go on sale Friday. Most tech analysts are impressed with the new features on the new iPhone 5S, which has a way to get onto the phone with a scan of a finger versus a password. And there are other cool advances in technology on the smartphone being met with glowing reviews.
If you're aggravated with the 5, what you're going to find with the 5S is it's going to get better battery life. Siri is going to be far more capable than she was, though you're going to get that on the 5 with a software refresh. And you'll probably find that the antenna works better, the radio works better, and the camera works better as well.
The 5S is reported to already be in short supply. Apple is said to have a limited inventory on the new 5C model, which has similar features and is $100 less.
Australians hoping to block McDonald's from building a 24-hour fast food restaurant in their small town hope to appeal to McDonald's executives directly. As our cover story shows, they didn't make it past the front door, but did meet briefly with representatives outside McDonald's world headquarters. A contingent of Australians brought boxes filled with petitions halfway around the world to McDonald's world headquarters in suburban Chicago. They'd hoped to convince executives to abandon a 2-year fight to build a McDonald's in Tacoma, a suburb of Melbourne. They were met outside the front door by 2 vice presidents, one of communications, the other of social responsibility.
We haven't got anywhere near speaking to people that actually have any decision-making capability. We've always been sent the B team.
The group asked why McDonald's had pursued legal action against protesters in their town of about 2,000 people, dropping some of the claims but keeping others.
We've had folks that have been photographed. We had a lady waiting for church the other day that was assaulted by a security officer.
The only legal protection that we've sought is against trespassing on the site.
After a brief exchange and told they could go no further, they handed over the boxes.
They're heavy, aren't they? At this time, we're very comfortable with the project going forward. As early as this morning, we received emails from people in Tacoma who are welcoming the McDonald's there.
McDonald's distributed aerial photos showing a strip of land zoned for commercial development. But protesters say none of it has a 24-hour-a-day drive-through or a large parking lot as is planned. They fear Tacoma, on the edge of a national park, would be overrun with traffic and litter.
We'll get thousands of people on site. We'll march again. We'll keep this up. We're the little town that roared, and we're going to continue to roar.
McDonald's says the franchise in question would be owned and operated by an Australian who owns 2 other McDonald's. The protesters say they plan to demonstrate at those locations after their return to Australia later this week.
Starbucks is done with guns. The coffee chain CEO Howard Schultz wrote in a letter to America that he's respectfully requesting that customers no longer bring firearms into our stores or outdoor seating areas. The letter will appear in several major newspapers today. Schultz says it's not an out-and-out ban on guns. Originally, Starbucks permitted weapons at its cafes.
An economic bellwether reported a boost this quarter. FedEx reports better than expected profits thanks to cost-cutting measures. It says it now supports its full-year outlook and will push shipping rates up in January. Wall Street applauded the news, sending the stock up 5% yesterday. At General Mills, the brand said higher yogurt sales lifted quarterly profits, the boost mostly from international business.
The merger between American Airlines and U.S. Airways is facing headwind from one of its unions. Flight attendants for American Eagle, which is owned by AMR, fear losing their jobs if a new airline is formed. Yesterday, pilots, mechanics, baggage handlers, and flight attendants from American and U.S. Airways rallied in Washington to support the merger. The government claims the merger would reduce competition and is suing to stop the deal.
Thousands of tourists remain stranded in Mexico following the aftermath of a tropical storm. 57 people have been killed by floods that hit central and southern Mexico over the weekend. An estimated 40,000 vacationers continue to wait for seats aboard outgoing flights, departing twice an hour. Residents are bracing for the possibility of another storm this week.
Well, on to the economic calendar for today. It's initial unemployment and continuing claims, along with existing home sales, Philly Fed, leading indicators, and natural gas inventories. On the earnings calendar, Pier 1 Imports, Conagra Foods, Rite Aid, and Scholastic. There's still plenty more to come on First Business. Conflict of disinterest. Bill Mueller tells us why it's becoming harder for corporate America to find loyal employees. Plus, the indie films that are headed for the big time in Hollywood. And find out if traders think the stock market will get a rally redo. We'll be right back.
Loyalty to your company and being engaged in your work. Now, why do you suppose both are declining? Doesn't seem our hearts are so much in our work, and we don't feel connected to that company that is paying us. And that's costing companies, says the Bureau of National Affairs, about $11 billion a year in employee turnover. So why is it happening, and what should companies be doing to sort of get us back in the game? Dale Carnegie Training did some research on this, and Greg Cox is president of Dale Carnegie Chicago. So, Greg, what should companies be doing to keep us engaged and loyal to these companies we're working for?
Well, Gallup did some research, Bill, a couple years ago, and they found out some very interesting statistics on engagement. First was that out of an organization of 100 people, 28% of the people in that building are going to be engaged. 54% are going to be disengaged, and 17% are going to be actively disengaged.
Almost meaning they're sabotaging what the company's trying to do.
What that could mean is that they're not planning on leaving, they're planning on staying and probably taking some other people with them, being toxic.
Yeah. All right, so give us the 3 things that a company needs to be doing.
There's 3 things, and the first thing is that the satisfaction with the immediate supervisor has got to be solid. Secondly is a belief in senior leadership. And then finally, what we found in our project was that there needs to be pride in the organization.
Well, why is that breaking down? What's changed over the years?
Well, there's a lot of different things that would fit into that. The one thing would be that today's worker, millennial, under 30, is a little bit entitled, so the research shows. And so sometimes they could be looking to get engaged rather than to be engaged.
Well, a company does have some responsibility to almost proactively create an engaged workforce.
Absolutely. It's a dynamic relationship, particularly with the immediate supervisor. So not only does that that immediate supervisor need to bring leadership game, so to speak, and be interested in mentoring and coaching, but the employee has a role in that they need to be all in. They need to be paying attention and work on their relationship too.
Yeah, so managers have to almost say, what kind of company would I want to work for, and then create that environment.
That would be a great question to ask that doesn't get asked, and therefore it lowers engagement.
Greg Cox from Dale Carnegie. Thanks so much.
You bet.
Thank you, Bill. Coming up next, Oh Canada. The Toronto Film Festival has a few surprises in store. A sneak peek is just ahead. Plus, will the stock market stall out after racing to new highs Wednesday? Stick around for Chart Talk. A breakout film could continue to gain momentum at the box office this weekend. Our movie guy is here to talk about The Insidious September. Welcome back to the show as always, Eric.
Thank you.
This film did surprisingly well at the box office.
Did tremendous. I mean, the first Insidious from a few years ago was a nice little small little word of mouth hit, and this is just great news for James Wan, who's having one heck of a year. Yeah, The Conjuring was a big hit this summer. He's signed on to do the next Fast and Furious movie, and now this. I mean, it is tremendous.
It was almost a record breaker.
Yeah, it was the second highest grossing film opening weekend for September, just behind Hotel Transylvania, which is an animated film, so it was all the more spectacular.
Here's what else happened at the box office. Insidious, of course, coming in with $40 million. The Family at 14, Riddick at 6.8, The Butler and We're the Millers right around $5 million. Now, coming up this weekend, Prisoners and Battle of the Year. Any contenders there for first place?
Prisoners has a chance. Prisoners is being very well advertised right now. Hugh Jackman is certainly making the rounds, possible Oscar contender even. The film itself, I think, is very strong for two acts. A very solid kidnapping thriller, very intense, very emotional. And I think the final third kind of turns into Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
You are fresh off your trip to the Toronto Film Festival where you saw 43 films.
43. That's right. 43 movies in 8 days.
And what you notice is there are some small films that are getting purchased by some big Hollywood agents and studios. So here's a look at that. The movies that were sold: Bad Words, Can a Song Save Your Life, The Railway Man, and The F Word. So tell us about these, starting with The F Word. Now, this actually has Harry Potter in it.
Yes, and The F Word is not exactly what it sounds like it is. The F stands for friend in the movie, and Daniel Radcliffe plays a guy who would much rather be in a more secure relationship more than just being friends with Zoe Kazan in the movie. CBS Films bought that for $2.5 million. I think they could be a nice little sleeper hit.
Bad Words, speaking of, had a lot of buzz.
Yeah, well, this is one of the top sellers at the festival this year. $7 million Focus paid for the Jason Bateman's directorial debut. And it's a very funny movie. I mean, if Focus sort of advertises it the way that Bad Santa was advertised, it's very much in the same sort of realm. It's an older man swearing at children in a spelling bee, no less. I think this film could be a real solid sleeper hit for Jason Bateman.
And Can a Song Save Your Life?
Yeah, this is directed by John Carney, who did a small little film called Once a few years ago. Actually won an Oscar for Best Original Song with Glenn Hansard and Marketa Glova. This is another film. It's another sort of lovely little film about the making of an album, basically. Mark Ruffalo and Keira Knightley. Keira Knightley, who sings in the movie. Catherine Keener and Adam Levine is also in the movie. So
and The Railway Man, which has Mr. Darcy.
Yeah, it has Colin Firth and Nicole Kidman. It's based on a true story of a man who was tortured during World War II by the Japanese, and sort of the story about not only his experiences, but sort of him as an older man and going back and confronting the people who tortured him. So Weinstein people picked that up, so I'm sure they're going to be looking probably for Oscars maybe next year on that one.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Was yesterday's record move in the stock market a one-day pop, or is there more rally action to come? Find out next in Chart Talk. In Chart Talk now, the stock market zipped higher on the Fed's inaction on tapering. Joining us now is Matt Kavanaugh, CMZ Trading. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning.
Will the rally continue into today's session?
Well, it should be really interesting to see how the market reacts and digests this news over the next few days. You know, market instantly rallied when the Fed said they weren't going to taper, continued to rally as Bernanke made his comments, said they're going to keep the pedal to the metal, keep the short-term interest rates low, and really continue to support this economy. So it's interesting to hear, interesting to watch, and we shall see what the market does.
Anything in the charts to say this rally could perhaps start to back off?
Well, you know, we thought so, but every time you think that the rally's about to back off, it's not, because we've got this central bank backstop. So we do have some big news coming up now through the end of the year. It looks like the numbers aren't so hot. Housing's softening a little bit, but, you know, we've got the Fed. So really interesting to watch. We're kind of in uncharted territory, and I think, you know, we could be going to 1,800 in the S&P, and we could be going back down. So buckle up.
Buckle up, and maybe we see more rally today. You never know. Thanks for coming on the show, Matt.
Thanks.
Coming up tomorrow, does chatter matter? How chit-chat around trading floors led many on Wall Street to believe the Fed would taper. Join us for that on Friday. From all of us at First Business, have a great day.